Singtel and StarHub will sunset their 3G services in stages from November instead of end of this month as originally planned. Some 9,000 users are still on these networks a year after the system was scheduled to be shut down. Nicholas Ng tells us more.
When the IA Raja telephone exchange first opened, 15,000 lines of telephone switching equipment were installed. Since then, the frequencies it handles has changed, with 3G being the latest to end. For those still on the network, efforts are ongoing for them to make the switch. Singtel, StarHub and M1 have all been offering customers newer 4 and 5G plans, with special help given to seniors and vulnerable groups. In fact, it's not been possible to get a 3G phone for some time now. M1 says that their customers have all moved away from 3G and that such services will end on 1st August as planned. Singtel and StarHub will progressively wind down their networks from November to give customers more time to make the jump. With the old network out of the picture, telcos can now find new uses for these valuable radio frequencies. They say that they will build on 3G's bones with 5G infrastructure, which they promise will bring faster speeds and better connectivity.
And while telcos work to help the elderly and vulnerable groups transition out of the 3G network, businesses are also racing against time to make the switch. Some companies relying on 3G are making the transition not just for themselves, but for their customers too. Nicholas Ng finds out more.
It's out of the 3G SIM card and in with the 4G upgrade. This tech company has repeated this process for the last few months, transitioning their devices out of the aging network ahead of the 3G shutdown. The firm helps set up and manage hardware systems, handling up to thousands of devices on a single network. Such systems are known as the Internet of Things. The upgrade has racked up hardware and labor costs.
And the customer will have bear certain manpower costs, which was actually they have absorbed it. So in total, in Singapore alone, I think if I calculate everything, a ballpark figure between us, the customers, and many of the hidden costs, you can add up to hundreds of thousands of dollars. And that's in Singapore alone.
Unibiz is not alone. Some 9,000 users, including businesses, are still relying on 3G. Other local companies would be affected if they use IoT systems, and especially if they were set up around a decade ago, when 3G was the standard.
I think it's generally companies that are operating in areas like manufacturing, like logistics or agriculture, which rely exclusively on radio communications and real-time data transfer, that are more likely to be affected.
In practice, these systems excel at transmitting small packets of information from a sensor to a base station, which uses SIM cards. From there, it goes up to the internet and finally to the end user. For systems like these, even a relatively slow 3G network is sufficient. The older network works well with the system of infrared sensors, which tracks where rodents or pests are located and can help exterminators hunt them down.
From a productivity point of view, we found that our focus treatment allows more efficient use of manpower. Thirdly, it's efficacy. It also determines how efficient our control methods are. Now, for a pest controller, of course, it makes his job a lot easier.
3G consumers and businesses won't be left alone when the network shuts down. Mobile network operators are required to help users make the transition from 3G.
And for more, we're now joined by Sam Fenwick, Principal Analyst at Opensignal, a global provider of independent insights into consumers' connectivity experiences. Mr. Fenwick, welcome to the program. So we've heard from the story that many network systems, like the Internet of Things, run on 3G. Why is that the case when there are faster, more advanced networks available?
The thing to remember is that the world of business runs at a different speed to that of consumers. So in the business world, it's all about maximizing return on your assets, extending their life, and ripping new things out comes at a very real cost in terms of installation costs, downtime, all that kind of thing, which as a business you want to avoid. So that's the key reason.
So why has it taken so long for these systems to migrate to 4G?
again, there's a lot of moving parts. You have to think about the potential disruption to the day-to-day operation of the business in question, which devices need to be moved across, all that kind of thing. It takes time to organise that, and that's just with one business, let alone the many affected.
So in Singapore, Mr. Fenwick, less than 0.1% of mobile subscribers are still on 3G. What can consumers do to check if our devices will work even after the 3G sunset?
Okay, well, first of all, you can look on various websites. M1 has a list of 4G capable devices and above. And also there's a website called GSM Arena, which gives you information about the various mobile phones. You can type in the make of your phone, and it will tell you whether or not it's 4G capable. Although it will refer to that as LTE, which is another name for 4G.
So as part of a smoother transition to 4G, 5G, what other types of outreach or assistance can telcos provide, particularly for elderly or vulnerable groups who, may not even be aware that this is happening?
They're already doing quite a lot. They're reaching out, they're explaining the need, and they're also helping seniors understand how to use new devices. But I think it's not just something for the telcos. It's something we all should be doing. We all have senior grandparents or parents, and we should lend a hand. I mean, there's different degrees. My mother is a whiz at technology. My dad struggles to use WhatsApp. So it's about stepping in and making sure they're aware of the issue before the networks are shut down.
So for the businesses, it is a race against time for them to make the switch too, isn't it? But the upgrade itself can be costly for some. And some businesses, may even question, is this even worth it in the first place? What do you think?
Well, from the point of view of society, we need to stop using obsolete technology. I mean, there's nothing really on 3G that you can't do better on 4G. Switching 3G off means that that spectrum can be used to improve the 4G and 5G experience. There's also the fact that users typically have a much better experience on 4G and 5G than on 3G. So for example, the users we see in our database in Singapore spend 10 times more time without a signal from those on 4G, and 12 times from those who can connect to 5G. Similarly, speeds are massively different. 4G users see 6 times faster speeds than 3G users, and 5G users see 22 times faster speeds than 3G users. So there are very good reasons to upgrade and good reasons to shut down 3G networks once they've run their course.
So given the rapid pace of development, is this something that we should expect to see more often, the constant shutting down of networks in the future?
In general terms of IT, yes. In terms of networks, I think it's going to be a very long time before 4G networks shut down. The reason for that is that we'd need for phones which can support something called 5G standalone technology to be as ubiquitous as 4G cell phones are now. And we're a long way off that in most countries. I mean, there's an argument to think that Singapore may be one of the faster ones to transition. But again, I mean, we're talking 15, 20 years down the line. So I don't think business as a whole have to worry about 4G going away anytime soon. Another thing to bear in mind is that mobile operators want 6G to be more of a software upgrade than 5G was. So we'll be entering perhaps a new phase in terms of how mobile networks evolve over time.
So looking ahead, Mr. Fenwick, do you think it's early days to start thinking about what 6G coverage could look like, since we've only just achieved full 5G coverage here in Singapore?
Definitely. I mean, before 6G comes along, there's something called 5.5G or 5G Advanced, which will bring some new capabilities. It will start looking at using AI to improve the performance of mobile networks, and that's something which will come in 6G. 6G will probably bring support for new frequency bands and augmented reality devices, that kind of thing. But it's a long way off. I mean, people are expecting 6G around 2030. So, yes, I mean, I think it's there's not much point thinking about what form 6G coverage will take at the moment.
All right, we still have time till 2030. Mr. Fenwick, thank you very much for sharing your insights. That was Sam Fenwick, Principal Analyst at Opensignal.